Why, hello, everyone. Welcome to another daily video. Today we're going to be talking about John Frankenheimer's second to last movie, the 1998 film Ronin. Film, like I said, directed by John Frankenheimer, written by J.D. Zeik, also heavily rewritten by David Mamet under a pseudonym, though, which I can't remember what the pseudonym was. But J.D. Zeik wrote the story. He wrote a pass of the screenplay, and then David Mamet came in. And for some reason, there was some sort of arbitration about who should get credit. But apparently, this is a very heavily influenced by David Mamet, especially when it comes to like the dialogue and whatnot. So maybe not so much the story or the framing device, but the dialogue is very Mamet. And when you watch the movie, you can actually kind of feel that. It stars Robert De Niro, Jean Reno, Natasha McElhone, Stellan Skarsgård, Sean Bean, Skip Sudeth, Michael Lonsdale, Jan Triska, Jonathan Pryce, Ron Perkins, Fyodor Atkin, and others. The synopsis is a freelancing former U.S. intelligence agent tries to track down a mysterious package that is wanted by the Irish and the Russians. So this is kind of like in the style of like a 70s Cold War era Euro spy thriller. It's kind of got this desaturated look. It's all about double crossing and triple crossing and kind of questionable allegiances and who's trying to get what, and everybody's kind of in this weird almost cat and mouse game about trying to get one up on each other about this thing. There's a MacGuffin in the movie. There's this case. Everybody's trying to get this case. You never find out what the case is, or what's in the case rather, but everybody wants it. There's an implication that it is some sort of, probably like, I would say like, maybe it's like something to do with like a nuclear weapon, because it's basically terrorist organizations. They have like Jonathan Pryce's character basically plays a guy that was too hardcore for the IRA, and he gets kicked out, and he wants to kind of prove his point. So he's trying to get this case. The Russian mob is trying to get the case, and then you have allegedly ex-intelligence guy played by Robert De Niro infiltrating this team, this heist team, because there's this heist team that's put together to go get it, to steal the case, or to make an exchange, to do something, shady to get their hands on it, and they feel like they're going to steal it. And then that kind of escalates into a larger conflict between everyone as the movie goes on. I had not seen this in a really long time. It was one of my dad's like favorite movies, and I always kind of like gave him shit. I was always just like, yeah, Ronin's fine. It's fine. It's okay. And now that I'm older, now that I'm an old man, I gotta say, Dad, I think you were right. This is a fantastic movie, and in just this genre in general, and in a weird way, in hindsight, when you look at it now, it kind of like puts a period on the end of an entire era of filmmaking. Nobody does stuff like this after this point, because everything goes to this kind of overly kinetic, overly choreographed, in a bad way, like movies like The Bourne Identity. And that series kind of takes over. It kind of takes this genre, this Cold War era spy thriller, Euro thriller genre, and it becomes that. It becomes much more almost populist. Very clear delineation between who is good and bad. Ronin feels like a movie that would have been made like in the mid 70s. It's got like a paranoid thriller kind of vibe to it, and everybody is questionable in the movie. Like there's a lot of gray area in terms of these characters, who they are, what they represent, what they're trying to achieve. And the movie never really moralizes or kind of makes you feel like you should be rooting for one team more than the other. Even though, I mean, granted, Robert De Niro's character is the lead, and just by de facto sense, you're following him, like you kind of want him to achieve his goal, but it's not from like a philosophical or a moral position. You just do it because he's the lead character. You just feel that way. When you reflect on the movie, you're like, oh, well, he's not really that much better than anybody else. Because even what he's trying to accomplish, we don't really know the ends to it. We don't know. As you're watching the movie, you can make an assumption. Like I said, there's kind of this hinting that maybe he still is a spook. He doesn't introduce himself to the team as working for the intelligence community or an ex-intelligence guy, I don't believe. And he's so I think it's questionable whether he's infiltrating them or not. I think by the end of the movie, it pretty much just flat out says that he is, but it's still up in the air. You don't know. He could just be, this just could be his ruse, like his game that he plays. But from top to bottom, the movie is fantastic. It's got great action. It has some of the best car chase set pieces I've ever seen, or at least probably from this point up until they made like Mad Max Fury Road. They used all practical cars. They destroyed, I think, 70 cars during the making of these like 2 big chases. And they're awesome. And they're like riveting and well constructed and choreographed. And the actors too. I got to give credit to De Niro, because there's in the second chase scene, the second car chase scene, they're like weaving in and out of oncoming traffic and through these tunnels and whatnot. And he actually looks like he's stressed the fuck out, like you would be if you were driving a car doing that shit. He's got this like feet look on his face, and I was just so pleased. I was so pleased that he did that, because so many times people, when during these kind of scenes, they just like have to look cool. De Niro was not trying to look cool. He was trying to sell the reality, as my man De Niro always does, as we've talked about several times whenever we talk about De Niro in a movie. If you want to go hear a great De Niro love fest, go check out Zoobox Goes to the Movies episode about Copland. We lay it on thick for De Niro. And it's because he brings like this texture. He brings these little moments, this little flavor to everything that he does. And this is actually also kind of the end of the great De Niro era. After this, I mean, I'm sure there's things in there that like you could point to and be like, oh, that was also a good one. But this is kind of, he becomes almost like a comic actor after this. He does a few serious things, but he kind of becomes like an old goof. I mean, maybe he just wanted a change. Maybe he thinks that it's easier than doing the dramatic work in the way that he does dramatic work. Maybe that's what motivated him to start making kind of mediocre comedies. But this is kind of the last of the classic De Niro. He gets to play like a heavy leading man in a cool action movie. And he does this, a decade before Taken. Because he was probably, I guess, when he made Ronin, he must have been around the age Liam Neeson was when he did Taken. Granted, it's not quite the same thing. Also, Liam Neeson's like 6'6", and he probably could have fucking crushed you with a haymaker in his late 50s or his mid 50s or whatever when that was made. But yeah, it's a great De Niro performance, a great strong performance. But everybody is great in this movie. I mean, Jean Reno, come on, the French actor Jean Reno, is great in this movie. He kind of plays a more like kind of low key guy. And he gives a great performance. He's a great supporting character for De Niro's character to work off of. Natasha McKellen, she's really good. Stellan Skarsgård, actually, he's awesome in this, and he's kind of brings that like duplicitous spy thing. That's like what his character is kind of bringing to the movie. All the double crossing and whatnot. Like his character is like this sleazy, almost like business guy. That's kind of like the way his character looks, but they do a great job in selling everything and setting everything up. Now, I would say this. There's a lot of times when you watch these kind of movies, there is a lot of contrivance. There can be a lot of stupid shit. I'm not going to deny that. Like, if you start thinking too hard about the plot itself, you're just going to be like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this doesn't... The actions the characters take don't make a ton of sense relative to plot. So it's kind of just because I don't know if there's a good way to pull this kind of shit off, to be honest with you. I think the only one that comes even mildly close is the 70s version of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. Now, they made a movie of that in like 2010, 2011 with Gary Oldman is in it. But if you go back and watch the one with Alec Guinness, there's a BBC miniseries, and it's fucking fantastic. But that is like the standard for this kind of thing. For a movie like this, that's kind of the standard. And Ronin, like I said, kind of put a period on the genre until they remade Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. But even that movie is not working on the same level this is. This is much more of like an action movie, but in a great way. I mean, I really loved revisiting it, and you got to learn to let go of some of that stuff because it's going to be confusing. Now, if you pay very close attention to the plot, you'll kind of maybe be able to gather a little bit more of what's going on or what motivates the characters. But there's some stuff that seems a little. You're like, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. But the craftsmanship on display, like behind the scenes, behind the camera, is impeccable. I mean, the director of photography, I wanted to give his name because I really, really loved his work in this movie. He's been around for a while too, and he's done some Robert Frese. He's a French dude, and he's done some movies. Alpha Dog, Babylon A.D. Jeez, what other movie did he do? The Other Woman, Ronin, 7 Years in Tibet, Keys to Tulsa, Wings of Courage. Well, he's done some movies, but I don't know. His work here was really awesome. He really nailed it here. Because they did this cool thing because they wanted to really be kind of faithful to the Cold War era spy thriller movies. So all of the production design, everything is chosen specifically and painted with muted colors. Because like I said at the top, there's this desaturated look to the movie. It's got kind of this cold, steely, almost like bluish hue to the film. And then to add on top of that, every piece of costuming, all the sets were designed this way. They all use muted colors just to kind of really, really bring a sense of a reality or a place. And they nailed it. I mean, they nailed it. The look of the movie is gorgeous. And the action cinematography for the car chases, oh my God, they're so good. I mean, so good. Like I meant what I said, because I think, Mad Max Fury Road for the modern era is the best, like, practical car shit that I've seen probably in my entire life. But Ronin is right up there with it. And I did not realize that until I watched it this past time. I mean, just some of the way they construct the scenes, like the cutting in and out of action and interior and POV shots, and it is thrilling. They are thrilling. You could watch those on their own, like separate from the movie, and fucking think they're awesome. And they are multifaceted. They're layered. They're both like 10 minutes long, but it does not feel like it. It feels like it's over like that. It's awesome. I cannot recommend watching Ronin if you're like just into that kind of stuff. If you're into practical action, I can't recommend a movie higher than Ronin. I didn't even show. I actually got the cool Arrow video release version of it. There was a sale. There's just like this website. It's like MVD Video or something. And every once in a while they'll do these crazy Arrow sales. I got this for $5. This is usually like $35 on Amazon. And that's kind of what stopped me from checking it out for so long, because I've been meaning to go back to it for years. And it's been on, streaming services here and there, but I probably missed it. And for some reason, like, I pay for these fucking streaming services, and I don't want most of them. I don't want them. My wife almost making me keep them at this point. Because I'm like, at this point, like, I'd be good with like HBO Max and Amazon Prime. Like, I want to get rid of Disney Plus and Hulu. I mean, Hulu and Disney Plus are like a package thing, but like, I don't ever utilize them. Maybe that's my own fault. I don't know. But it takes me a lot of times to like get a physical copy, like I would have when I was a kid, to really be like, oh, now I'm gonna watch it. It puts that impetus there. But I'm so glad, because the transfer on this thing is from they did a 4K scan, the original negative, and it looks fantastic, and it really brings out the work that they did as production design wise and the cinematography. It really like highlights that stuff, and it looks gorgeous. And then there was, if you ever get a chance to pick this up, if you're a big Ronin fan, I think this is a must have. But I think it's on Amazon Prime right now. So if you have an Amazon Prime account, you can watch Ronin. You can watch it right now. I didn't know that when I bought it, but $5, whether it was on there or not, I would have bought it. I'm just gonna be straight up with you. Straight up. But I was so not just like pleasantly surprised, because I was like, oh, I bet this has aged well. I bet I'll like this more now that I'm older. Thinking back to like how much my dad liked it, and I did, and I was. It really gave me a taste. Now I'm like, oh man, I want to go watch a bunch of like 70s like spy thrillers 70s action movies. Get that grit, get that texture. Because, like I said, this is a period on the end of an entire way of making movies, an entire genre of filmmaking, because it becomes much more straightforward, populist after this. And that's because of the success of the Bourne movies. They completely change this kind of storytelling. So yeah. So Ronin's worth your time. Check out Ronin. I 100% recommend Ronin. If you're a cool guy like me, and of course you are, or a cool lady, or cool whatever. If you're cool like me, check out Ronin. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to know more about Zoobox, you want to keep up to date with everything Zoobox, there's a bunch of links in the description for Facebook, for Instagram, for my personal Twitter. Also, if you'd like to make a recommendation for these daily videos or a future episode of Zoobox Goes to the Movies, throw it in the comments. All right, everybody. Have a good one.